I'm very, very excited. I'm very excited because one of my improv heroes is here. I've already told him, and I want to pre-frame for everybody in the audience that there will be a lot of complimenting, a lot of edifying, and a lot of admiration in this Zoom room. So he's probably very uncomfortable right now, but that's very okay. He's used to it. He's an improviser, so he's fine. Andy, can I call you Andy firstly? Is that cool?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, awesome. And I want to get this right. Okay, so is it Eninger?
Eninger, like vinegar. Yes.
Okay, okay, awesome. Because like I'm Aussie, so everything's like Eninger, Andy Eninger. You know, so I just want to make sure that was that was all cool. All right, so as you know, I've been doing some coaching with you, some solo coaching around solo prov, and you are amazing. Now here comes the compliments are starting. Now what I wanted to just talk to you about was you as a teacher and coach first. So everybody who doesn't know you should. So at the end of this video, you'll see any websites and stuff that you need to go to. Trust me, this man is a master. Okay. So the first thing that I want to ask you is, do you know who Fred Rogers is?
As in Mr. Rogers?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you know who Carl Rogers is?
Carl Rogers? No.
So he is one of the best counselors that ever lived, and one of the sort of pioneers of conflict resolution.
Oh, okay.
And do you know Bob Ross?
Yes.
Okay, so you, to me, are a conglomerate of all of these people. Okay, so Carl Rogers is sort of known for unconditional positive regard. So holding the space and allowing someone to be their true self. And above everything else, this is the one thing that I love about you as a teacher and as a coach. So, and you know Fred Rogers and you know Bob Ross. So talk to me a little bit about, is there any kind of intention that you set, or is there any kind of philosophy you have around teaching and around that holding of the space when people are learning and pushing their boundaries and learning new things?
You just nailed it. You kind of took my breath away. That you just spoke my intention. My intention really is holding the space. It's truly just creating the space and just doing just enough so that people can discover things on their own. Definitely not a directive person, although I love to direct. But in terms of coaching and coaching improv in particular, I feel like it's a matter of sort of standing back, and then it always is also helping that person put their doubt aside, doing just whatever it takes to let that person just kind of like put their doubt aside moment by moment by moment. For me, that's what side coaching is. It's just like naming the doubt, setting it aside.
Wow, because that really resonates, that whole moment by moment. You just saying that, because that doubt thing, it's constant. Like it'll keep coming in. And one of your favorites, my favorite sayings of yours, see, you have sayings now. I've been taking notes. One of the Andyisms is there's always two dramas unfolding: the drama that you're playing and the drama that's going on in your head. So is that sort of what you mean when you say that kind of doubting that's unfolding?
I think that for anyone, especially like solo improv is kind of its own thing, but I think any improvisation, it's sort of the moment that the house of cards falls apart. You watch for that. Like I love teaching brand new improvisers when they just start doing their first scenes, or they just start doing their first like group mirroring work, and suddenly there's a magic moment and you see a person doubts it and they have to do something funny all of a sudden. And you're like, you don't need it. Like just enough to just be like, just surrender it, or whatever it takes to let that person just set that aside. And for me, it's never corrective, but rather it's just acknowledging whatever is the fear or whatever it's causing them to react like that, or to sell out, or to disbelieve themselves, or disbelieve the character, or disbelieve the scene, or take that easy breezy choice.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, whatever you coach too, there's always two minds, I think, for anyone who teaches. It's like, how would I do it? You're always kind of watching it from that, and you're like that scripting mind. I'm a writer too, so I try to set that aside. But I really have to still and quiet that voice, because I'm much more curious on how can this person do it if they set that doubt aside. And I'm more interested in that. So I would say that my own progress as a teacher is always learning to still my own, like, how would I write this? What would I do next? And just open opportunities for how can that person make an array of the best choices for them and their style. And I think it's one of the reasons why I love to teach solo improv, because you have to attune yourself to the person. You have to really sort of sniff out, what are they good at? What do they like? What do they hate, but they're actually good at, they should do more of?
Yeah, it's so awesome. I mean, I've got here as my second point that you're sort of like a hands off the goods but guide style. And that kind of comes across with that, like, you're so nurturing with someone's strengths, and you're very aware of someone's strengths, and at the same time you're very aware of their weaknesses, and you'll sort of push them just enough, like, to learn how to be better in that way, but not at the expense of their strengths. And that's something that I really respect. And again, exactly what you just said, you have this real unconditional positive regard for people's style. So you're not sort of allowing yourself to sort of become this judgy kind of, but you're still this amazing guide who has so much knowledge. The compliments have started again. You knew this was going to be hard. All right. So yeah. Any other just thoughts just to sort of round that out, because I just want people to know what a great teacher you are, and especially from that perspective, because there's bloody hundreds of teachers, but for me, there's something special about someone who can see your sort of best potential, but not sort of dictate that. So yeah. Any other thoughts around? So if somebody's teaching, what would be your advice to someone as to how they can still that thing in their mind about it should be this, it should be that?
That's a great question. I honestly, it's one that I continue to work on for myself. But I think that the best thing you can do is go back to the performer's intention. And that if you ground it from that, like, what was their intention? What were they trying to do? I could see that you were trying to move to a different energy. I could see you reacting to the fact that the scene was so long, and you wanted to naturally move it along. And so there's two things in that. It's either give yourself the generosity of patience. That might be something that student needs to learn, or it might be you needed to trust that instinct and move to the next thing. Either one, it could be the case for that student in that moment. That's the sort of insight to share, not you should have gone to X, or instead you should have explored this part of the relationship. So those could be options that you might have offered if the student is completely like, I don't know what I would have done with that. But I think it's more important to notice what was their intent, what did you notice that they were trying to do, and what might have been the shift in that moment, rather than scripting out the next beat for them. And it's hard. I have great ideas. I mean, teachers, it's always like if you've ever been in an audience and you're watching an improv show, you're like, oh, I would have done this instead.
Yeah.
We always can. We're brilliant when we're in the audience. We're brilliant when we're on the back wall.
Yeah, totally. So have you had any training in counseling or anything like that? Because you certainly have that. Those are the type of questions, I don't know whether you've just done that naturally, but those are the kind of questions that you would ask someone rather than being directive. You would say that, I noticed this, I noticed that, about sort of what you did. So do you have any background in counselling or something? I know you do cultural diversity and stuff like that for corporate, so you certainly have had to have a really advanced adult theory of mind where you need to put yourself in other people's positions, so that helps with empathy and things like that. But anything specific, like any kind of counselling or anything like that you've done?
I think it was teaching sketch comedy writing as much as anything, because you have to. Well, I learned from amazing instructors in Chicago in the Second City universe So from the amazing Martin DeMott, who just was like empathy personified, and his center and core was empathy. Like that's what those of us who are lucky enough to study with him kind of like gleaned that as a center point for teaching. I think that light still burns very bright. And then in terms of the writing that I taught, my mentor there was a woman named Mary Scruggs, who ran the writing program for Second City. And her whole philosophy was around really discovering what's the point of view, what's the intention of the author, like what are they trying to get at? Because you listen to a terrible sketch, these are newborn sketch comedy writers. They write these 40-page sketches, and you're like, what is this short play with no spaces or parenthetical, everything is a mess and it's just terrible and it's offensive. Like, where do you even begin? Where you begin is discovering what the intention was and then providing feedback there.
Wow.
So those were two really formative things. And I do think that I do a lot of work in terms of applied improvisation too. And that requires so much patience in terms of whether it's like coming in as a coach or coming in to understand if people are either trying to become improvisers, but in sort of a corporate space, but more often they're like, what's our communication trouble? What's our problem there? Why can't we use yes and as a mindset in trying to come up with ideas? And so you have to ask a lot of questions to understand why it's important for them or how it can be important for them, so you can reframe why they should care about yes and as lawyers.
Yeah. Yes and is probably something too that I think about when I think about you, and not even just sort of technically in the improv side of it, but in that whole allowing the space, yes and allowing the potential, yes and that kind of more meta type yes and that I notice with you. You mentioned somebody before that was a pioneer for you of empathy in the Second City. Was that the same person? I watched the Monica interview, and you said there was somebody that said to you that they thought that improv was love, and that really resonated with you. Is that? Yeah. Okay. Yes. Cool. Yeah. Cool. And that comes across. That really comes across that you have that really sort of deep respect, I guess, for the process and for improv itself.